about my work and my history. I'm 80 years old and I've been making ceramics for the past 50 years. The first thing I do is I throw the form. I usually make sketches first. Then I throw the form, the base form, and after the form is thrown, the work has to sit and become leather hard, which is semi-dry, and then I can draw on it. After I get all of the faint lines in, then I have to go back in with a needle tool and I etch the line into the clay. The reason for that is that glaze is a liquid, and liquid runs, and the line on the surface of the pot prevents the glaze from running beyond the line, so that the color that's here stays there. It doesn't run down into the white, and the same thing would happen here. This white won't run down into the other part. And then it has to dry completely, and because of the complexity, it usually takes a while to dry them. I dry them very slowly. What I do is I cover them with a plastic bag, let them cure, uncover them, let them dry for a few hours, cover them again. So that sequence goes on and on until the piece is completely dry. And it's completely dry when I can put my cheek against the surface of the bisque piece and it's not cold. If it feels cold, then it still has some moisture in it. So it has to dry some more. After it's dried totally, then it gets bisque fired. After they're bisque fired, they come out and the glazing process starts. And the glazing process is very, very lengthy. So each glaze has a specific color, and the color of the glaze isn't always the same as the color that you get when it's fired. 3 coats of glaze. 1 coat, it has to dry. The 2nd coat, it has to dry. The 3rd coat, it has to dry. Once all of the glaze is put on and I'm satisfied with the color of the glaze, then it gets the final firing, and the final firing is a raku firing. And the raku firing, you fire it to, I fire it in a kiln, goes up to 1,800 degrees, a little more or less sometime. And then it gets withdrawn from the kiln at that temperature. It comes out and it goes into, I use garbage cans. It goes into a garbage can, and then it gets a combustible thrown on top of it. The combustible I usually use is sawdust or wood chips. Once it's in the kiln or in the bucket, what happens to the glaze is that because of the combustion of the wood, the atmosphere in the garbage can is now a carbon atmosphere instead of an oxygen atmosphere. And that carbon atmosphere allows some of the glazes that have a metallic surface or copper in them to be reduced. And they can come out in a variety of different colors, depending on the percentages of chemicals that are in each of the glazes. So this is an interesting piece, okay, for a number of different reasons. One, it's about one of the hurricanes that hit the Texas-Louisiana coast, and 2, it's about the image that's created in a storm. So if we look at this piece, you can see the storm clouds up above. We can see above the clouds, we have a lighthouse with clouds, and then above the clouds there are stars. There's stars and a little moon that's in the side of the lighthouse window. On the back side, okay, we have another element that's typical of coastal Texas, and that's the migration that happens periodically of the turtles being born and going to the sea. So from a distance, you see the shape of this. As you get closer to it, different things begin to reveal themselves. You don't really realize there's stars and a moon on the lighthouse until you get up and start examining it. With some of my art, I really like to open the form up so you can see through it. So it lets the light get inside so that there's a realization. Actually, it's sort of a way to complement my ability to throw, because the thinness in here lets you know how thin this piece was. And this one has some borrowed art, sort of. The lighthouses, there's 2 lighthouses, one on each side. And then there's 2 seascapes, one on each side. And Winslow Homer is a favorite artist of mine, and he painted some really, really nice seascapes. So I viewed his paintings of seascapes in terms of dealing with the drawings that I created for the seascapes. So this piece is after Winslow Homer. So this work, you're not going to see anything like this work anyplace else, I don't think. I've never seen anything this similar to my work.